How's it going? My name's Vincent. I have the honor of studying the sutras with you tonight. I spent 18 months studying and translating the text, and I also spent 10 months studying and translating the Yoga Sutras. So if you do have a question about them, if I can answer it, I will. Let me go ahead and pull it up. So this is my translation that you're looking at. And I digitally remastered all of the images. The images give insight into the sutras. They're beautifully drawn. I love the colors. And also looking at the image when you read the sutra gives you more of a mental note, a mental footnote, a mental mark, if you will. Chapter 20 is the way. Chapters 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20, I absolutely love. They're just fantastic. So here we go. Verse 273. The Eightfold Path is the best path. The Four Noble Truths are the best truths. Freedom from attachment is the best virtue. The awakened one is the best person. Now, I honestly have to say, I got introduced to the 8 limbs of yoga about 15 years ago at the same time that I was getting into Buddhism. And then I knew nothing. I didn't know the Eightfold Path. I didn't know the 8 limbs of yoga. But of course, the question comes up for me, what is the right path? How come there's 8-fold path and 8 limbs of yoga? Are they different? Which one's better? Which one's right? Which one's wrong? Which one's true? Which one's false? So after studying them for 15 years and completely and fully understanding both paths, I do feel that the 8 limbs of yoga are superior in some ways, and the Eightfold Path is superior in other ways. But the reason why I think the 8 limbs of yoga are superior is because the 3rd limb of yoga is asana. And the way that it's done with the exercise and the body postures, I feel it pushes you along faster on the path and gives you the bodily health more. But if you're an intellectual, I think the Eightfold Path is superior. And also, the Eightfold Path is superior in a couple other ways too. But the 8 limbs of yoga and the Eightfold Path are going to lead you to the same goal. Some of the Buddhists are saying that there's levels of jhana that you can only get if you follow the path of the Buddha. I don't think so. Because when you get into the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th jhanas, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th samadhis, you've transcended words, you've transcended concepts and ideas. You're in states of consciousness that are in, higher dimensional planes. So, but I do feel that the Dhammapada, the way that it's spoken and the things that it says, it will definitely teach you things that the Yoga Sutras won't. But the Yoga Sutras, it's faster. There's less sutras. There's only 196 sutras, and they talk about the physical changes, the aspects, the hindrances. The way that it's done, it's shorter, more concise, and to the point. So both texts are just absolutely fantastic to study. Verse 274. This is the best path for purifying insight. Tread this path and you will outmaneuver the demon of trickery. 275. If you follow this path, you will put an end to suffering and stress. Dukkha. The path will open when you pull out the thorn of lust. Well, the other thing is that if you're a householder or normal people that work, have families, so on and so forth, it can take years just to master the Dhammapada. I mean, it can take lifetimes, really. So just the Yoga Sutras of the Dhammapada can take years and years and years. And if you're not obsessed with spiritual texts like me, and you're not sitting around studying them for obsessively for 4 years, 5 years, then it can kind of hinder your path. So I would say if you're going to study both, go ahead, but choose one text and really, really study it and learn it. Verse 276. Thanks for joining. The awakened ones point the way. You must walk the path alone. Those who are truly mindful will release themselves from the grip of delusion. Verse 277. All things that have been put together are impermanent. When you understand this fully with insight, you become disenchanted with stress. This is the path to purity. Another reason why I absolutely love the Buddha, how he spoke, what he taught, was because the way that he says things. Dukkha means stress, it means pain, it means worry, it means death, it means unhappiness. Dukkha. There's just one word for it in Sanskrit. But in the first sutra, he says, if you make decisions with an agitated mind, dukkha will follow you, like the cart that follows the ox. So the agitated mind itself is what's causing your own pain. But what he's explaining is that if you don't understand what causes agitation and you can't eliminate its causes, then how can you have peace, or how can you stop pain from occurring? So if you eliminate the causes through knowledge and concentration and purity and austerity practices and study of the Dhamma, there's no more causes to cause the mind agitation. When he says agitation, another translation is an evil mind. An evil mind. If you think or act with an evil mind, then suffering will follow you. The other one is an impure heart. If you think or act with an impure heart, suffering will follow you. But when he's saying agitation, you're not evil if you're agitated. But because of the changing of the impermanent phenomena and the attachment to them, it causes us stress, worry, and fear and doubt. So that's where the Four Noble Truths is so important, because things come, things stay, things go. When they go, it causes us pain. The worry about what's coming causing the pain. Then the presence in the present moment becomes so important, because as soon as you lose awareness of the present moment, you start thinking about the past or worrying about the future again. And that right there causes more agitation. Yes. 278. To be alive is to have stress. When you see this with discernment, you become disenchanted with stress. This is the path to purity. 279. All states of being are without a self. When you embody this truth with discernment, you will achieve detachment from suffering. This is the path to freedom from suffering. So when he says all states of being are without a self, now, what the Yoga Sutras says, and the Yoga Sutras doesn't avoid the subject of the soul. It doesn't avoid it. But what they say is that the seer identifies with the physical plane. So you have a physical brain with 5 physical senses, right? You have the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin. Sight, hearing, smell, taste, and feeling. They're experienced through the physical brain. Without that, you wouldn't have any life experience. But what the Yoga Sutra says is the brain itself doesn't have the power of seeing. You can only see it in the light of the soul. So that all the brain is a mirror that the soul is experiencing the world through. So when he says all states of being are without a self, what happens is we identify with the physical plane. And when that happens from the soul, it gets fettered. And as soon as it gets fettered, it gets stuck. So the whole key is to purify the soul and focus the mind. Make the mind and the soul one. And then by relinquishing your fetters and purifying yourself, no longer, there's nothing else to catch you. The previous sutra says, how can you ensnare an awakened being who has perfectly purified himself and has no longer has fetters? So that purification process, that's what we're doing when we're sitting there meditating. We're purifying the soul. 280. Those who do not exert themselves when they should, who though young and strong are lazy and unmotivated, whose minds are filled with vain thoughts, will not find the path to wisdom. Watch your speech cautiously. Discipline your mind. Commit yourself to avoiding harmful behaviors. Purify these 3 courses of action, and you will achieve the way that is taught by the awakened. So if you look here in the picture, this one's focusing on the text, this one's focusing on the bird, this one's focusing on the text, this one's got the fan, he's fanning himself, this one's talking. The Buddha, his mind is completely focused here. And what this is the pure consciousness of his soul. It's completely detached. The lotus represents growing out of the mud, the spiritual wisdom of growing out of duality. Verse 282. Meditation leads to wisdom. Lack of meditation leads to mental decline. Understanding the results of your actions, choose the right path. So this is really important, because as soon as you stop concentrating, you go into mental decline. The Buddha says if you miss 1 second of mindfulness, you go back into hell. 1 second. That's why the Vipassana, just focusing on the ingoing and outgoing breath, if you just practice Vipassana, eventually you'll get to the goal. 283. Well, if we indulge in the senses too much, each time you indulge in the senses, it creates more fetters. And when you first take the mind out of the sensual pleasure world, you go through withdrawal, boredom, longing. It's painful when you stop putting the mind in the physical plane. 283. Cut down the forest of lust, but not the trees of knowledge. The forest of lust gives rise to fear. Having cut down the forest and its undergrowth, you will achieve the state of nirvana. I love the next sutras that come up. I love how they're spoken. 284. As long as the craving of a man for a woman has not been cut down and the slightest trace of it remains, his mind remains in bondage like a calf that drinks milk from its mother. Verse 285. Pluck off your craving like someone picks an autumn lotus. Cultivate only the path of peace that has been made known by the awakened. Verse 286. I will take refuge in a chosen place during the winter, spring, summer, and fall. Plan someone who does not think that death can intervene. Verse 287. People who are proud of their children and possessions, that delight blindly in their sense pleasures, are unprepared when death comes. They are carried away just like a flood unexpectedly carries away an entire village along with their possessions. Now, this right here is one of the reasons that I really think that the Dhammapada is a must-study text. The Buddha goes deeply into the deathless and what happens when you die. The other texts don't really do this. Well, maybe the Tibetan Book of the Dead and stuff like that, but not a lot of the other texts. The way that the Buddha explains it. 288. Nobody can stop death when it comes for you. Not your father, not your sons, not your friends. Verse 289. Realizing you can die at any moment, a wise person remains alert and aware as they hasten to clear the path that leads to nirvana. That's it for the 20th chapter, guys. The next chapter is 21, miscellaneous. What verse are we at here? 290. Okay, so the text has 423 verses, so we still got some chapters to go. But remember, the Buddha says you have to recite the suttas from front to back. Not only that, but you have to embody the essence of each of the suttas. So you should be able to memorize them, say them, and also embody their essence. And he says lack of recitation of the sutras is the downfall to spiritual knowledge. Thanks so much, everybody. If you have any comments, you can leave below. My version of the Dhammapada is available on Amazon. You can see the links in some of the descriptions for the study. Please continue to come and study with me. Thank you so much.